Yes, I went to see a therapist. I think there's a lot of stigma around going to see therapists or going to take some counselling, because there's this belief that if you go to see someone for help in that area, that means that you have an issue and you're therefore admitting that that issue is a problem. So I want to tell you a bit about why I came to the decision to go and see a therapist. But first, this week we had a pretty interesting milestone, or we almost had a major milestone, and that was that we now have 99 ninjas working at Exposure Ninja. So we have this water cooler chat in Slack, and it's where all the kind of company general chit chat between different people goes on. When you join Exposure Ninja, you get added to that water cooler and everyone says hi and greets you and all of that stuff. And so the number of people in that chat is my kind of barometer for how many ninjas we have here at Exposure Ninja. And this week we just hit 99, so the next person that we hire will be our 100th, which feels like a massive milestone. I was saying to Charlie, and I quite often say to some of the ninjas who've been with us for along the whole journey, like, this is insane, crazy that we've come all this way. I mean, Exposure Ninja is my first proper job. For many of the managers or the kind of senior people, it's the first time they've been in a role that senior. And it feels like we've just kind of figured it out on the way, or well, obviously still figuring it out, but we've just kind of done the next thing, done the next thing, done the next thing. There's not been some kind of grand plan. We just keep taking the next step, and here we are with 99 people, almost 100. So I'm sure we'll look back on 100 people and think, yeah, but that's absolutely nothing. To be honest, part of me already thinks that, but for the time being, I'm going to allow myself 30 seconds of reflection and a miniature pat on the back to say, cool, keep going, but yeah, this is a good first step. So therapy. I decided to go and see a therapist, not because I think that there's a particular issue but that I wanted to resolve, but I wanted to understand more about how I work. Now, it all came because I was talking to one of my friends who's been through some tough times, and she decided to go and see this particular counsellor. And she said that it was really interesting. She said they were having a conversation, and the therapist identified that there was one particular story which she kind of told herself over and over and over and over again. And this story was really negatively impacting her experience of life. And this resonated massively with me because for the last couple of years, I've been absolutely fascinated by this idea of limiting beliefs. So limiting beliefs are like the kind of miniature stories or patterns that we repeat in our head, either consciously or subconsciously, which impact our experience. They really define our experience of life, either positively or negatively. And I did a course, Michael Hyatt's Best Year Ever. Worth checking out, I think worth doing once if you haven't done it before. I actually do it every quarter. I have done it every quarter since first doing it. I did that a couple of years ago. And that was really interesting because he kind of gets you to think about these limiting beliefs. What are the things that you're telling yourself which are holding you back? And since then, I actually keep a list of my limiting beliefs on my phone. And when I'm feeling kind of negative about something, or when I'm feeling overwhelmed, it's usually, in fact, it's always, there's a limiting belief, there's a story that I'm telling myself in order to get in that state about this thing. So for example, before Luca was born, one of the things I was telling myself, because I realized I was getting a bit worried about Luca being here and the impact it would have on mine and Kate's life. And I was kind of just sitting thinking, okay, what am I telling myself in order to feel this? And I realized that the story I was telling myself was, once Luca's born, I'll have no time. Therefore, everything I've built to now will die. Okay, so firstly, it's incorrect, which most limiting beliefs are. And then secondly, if there is any kernel of truth in there, I will definitely have less time, but it gets magnified and exaggerated massively until it's completely like dominating your thinking. So once Luca's born, I have no time and everything I've built to now will die is incorrect and massively exaggerated, which is pretty consistent across all my limiting beliefs. So the next step from identifying the limiting belief isn't just to go, oh, that's interesting, but you got to think of a liberating truth. So this is the thing that you replace that limiting belief with. So for example, for my limiting belief around Luca, I said, becoming a dad will give me a new perspective and help me to reach a new level of productivity, perspective, and success. So once you replace that negative thought with that new, more positive story, becoming a dad will give me a new perspective, help me to reach a new level of productivity, perspective, and success, it's called a liberating truth because you feel liberated, right? And funnily enough, that's exactly what happened. I did get a new perspective and it did help Ian to grow to a new level. In fact, the month that Luca was born was our best month ever. The month after that was our best month ever. And we had like 7 consecutive best months ever. And then the year from Luca's birth to February, that was our best year ever. And so actually this thing about once Luca's born, I'll have no time and everything will die, obviously wasn't true. And in fact, the complete opposite was true. And it was a really good time for us. So that's really interesting, I think. There are other limiting, I've got millions of them here. I basically, every time I feel negative about something, I try and drill down what's the limiting belief. So for example, growth must be small and incremental, right? This was something I was always telling myself. Incremental growth is safe growth. Growth must be small and incremental. Actually, that's not true at all, is it? It's not true at all. A much more liberating truth would be the only thing that limits our growth is the value that we produce. Well, that's much more empowering because then it gets you focused on, okay, so how can we increase our value to the world? Another one that I've been telling myself for literally years is if I come off sales, our sales will go down. No one can sell as much as me. So this was trapping me being day-to-day focused on sales at Exposure Ninja and doing this, like, being my main activity, which is fine. And that gets you to a certain level. But at some point, you've got to stop doing that because you can't then focus on anything else. So no one can sell as much as me is one thing. And then if I come off sales, sales will go down. So what I replaced this with was if I successfully train up 3 people to sell at 66% of my level, we double our sales. So that's much more liberating because actually it's associating something good with me coming off sales. But it's also more factually accurate, right? If we want to be the world's best and biggest digital marketing agency, how are we going to do that if the owner is in the sales team all day, every day? It's not going to be possible, is it? Right? I can't. The rest of the company will struggle if I don't, or it won't grow as fast as it can. The marketing won't do what it needs to do if I'm all day, every day doing that. And also, I'm not the best salesperson in the world. So that's actually complete rubbish. Here's another one, which I think is super relevant. This is tough and things are going really badly, right? So whenever you're feeling real bad about something, there's a real shit story that you're telling yourself, and there's a much more liberating truth. So I replace this with, we're given challenges at exactly the right time to help us get to the next level. We can't be the company we need to be or the people that we want to be without breaking through them. Well, that's amazing, because then all of a sudden a bad thing, a challenge, becomes not this like thing that's crushing you down, but actually something that's helping you grow into a better person. So these limiting beliefs and liberating truths, I'm like absolutely massively in love with. I think the whole concept is brilliant and it's totally changed my life. So I'm a huge fan of that. So when my friend said that the counsellor helped her identify these stories, I thought, sick, I'm into this 100%, because this person is a professional at understanding how people work, and they're going to be able to help me identify any limiting beliefs that I don't really realise I have. So I went there. The first thing I was struck with was how good this lady's questioning is. She is an absolute master of asking fantastic questions, right? I'm really curious about counselling. I listen to books about counselling and I read about counselling. I think it's a useful life skill to have. I was finding it quite tricky in the session not to be distracted by just how good this lady was. So the questions that she asks and how she kind of leads you in a particular place and helps you discover things in your own head were unbelievable. I said to her a few times, you're so good. This is such a good question. Like, how do you develop this? But you kind of have to get back on the process and not kind of try and overanalyze the thing too much. The things that she helped me identify for me, right, were one thing about not being able to relax, which is quite a common criticism, I think. My nan always says to me, you work too hard. It's not all about chasing money. And I'm like, no, it's not. You're right. It's about building the world's best digital marketing agency. And you don't do that by just relaxing, right? You need to push and drive. So that's like been a kind of recurring thing in my head. So I was talking to a therapist about this, and I explained my opinion on the situation as, you know, when you have like a mound, I don't know what you call it, like a flock of meerkats. I don't know what the collective word is for meerkats, but you have a lookout of meerkats, let's say, and they're all in their kind of soil mound and they've got all their burrows. And then you've got that one meerkat that's like looking out over the jungle or wherever, the desert or wherever the meerkats are, or the zoo, and they're looking for danger, right? They're all alert and they're looking for danger, and they're trying to spot the threats that could, you know, threaten the existence of the lookout of meerkats. I said to the therapist, that's me at Exposure Ninja. That is me. I am the lookout of meerkats. And in fact, that is the role I take in life pretty much wherever I'm at. I'm looking for opportunities and threats, and that is my job, to keep the flock safe. And she was pushing me on, okay, but do you always need to do that? Do you not want to relax sometimes and let another meerkat take over? So I was kind of fighting back and wrestling in my own head with this concept, and I didn't really come to a solution. Another thing that she helped me identify was that I tend to look outside of myself for the solution. So for those of you who know me personally, you'll know that I am obsessed with self-improvement and learning. And this drives my wife crazy. So any situation, I will want to be doing something which helps me to grow. If we're watching TV at night, we watch TV for about an hour a day, and Kate always wants to watch some rubbish so that she can just switch off her brain and, you know, whatever. I would always rather watch something which is about learning, so like how it's made, stuff like that, or you've got like or inside the factory where you've got these products that are being developed and you see how they pass through the factory, and it's amazing to look at the processes and the efficiencies and inefficiencies, or something about business or about growth, or something where someone has been through you know, that type of stuff really, really energizes me. Whenever I'm going to the gym, in the gym, coming home from the gym, whatever, I'll be listening to audiobooks and podcasts and marketing stuff. As soon as I have any downtime, I don't just sit there. I never watch TV for enjoyment. I really struggle with live sport. I enjoy going to games, but I'll always be listening to something that's like helping me improve, so that I'm not just, you know, a slug in the thing eating ice cream and getting fat. Although I will eat ice cream and get fat while I'm listening to the thing, but the thing cancels out the ice cream and fat. So I'll always be kind of absorbing it and trying to learn. Now, there's a good part to that, which is it's taught me everything I know, but there's a bad part to that, which is I'm never just quiet and allow myself to come up with the answers. And the therapist kind of identified this and said, you need to first like give yourself some credit, but also realize that you know the answers to things and you don't have to constantly look outside for the answers. So, and that was really interesting, but it brought up something, and I was thinking about why I found it so difficult to take on her feedback. Whilst she's an incredible therapist, she does not have the traits and the tendency and the desire to build the world's best marketing agency, right? Her therapy practice is one person in one room. And part of me says, if I do what you tell me to do, I will be one person, agency or consultant in one room. And that's not where I want to go. So I've always had this belief that says only take advice from people who've done what you want to do or see something that you don't. Okay, so I'm not going to take advice on how to build an agency from someone who's never built a company, right? Unless it's like your solicitor saying something and they're saying you need to watch out for this because this is some legal thing that's coming in, you need to make sure, right, I'll take that advice. I won't say, yeah, but you haven't built an agency before, trust me, I've got this. And they're like, yeah, but this GDPR thing's coming in, so you need to kind of get on the right side of that. So you take advice from people who've done what you do or who see something that you don't see, so they have a different perspective. But I found it really tricky to take the therapist's advice because this kind of niggling thing in my head was saying, yeah, but I'm different to what your model of perfect is, and that's important, right? If I was the same, if I was fitting in with all of this stuff, then, you know, the thing wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be who I am. So I found it really difficult, and it's something I don't have an answer for, and I'm still kind of exploring in my own head, is how do you know when to take someone's advice who you disagree with, right? If you disagree with the advice, how do you know when to take it? Because either they know something that you don't and they're going to help you get to a breakthrough, or they're telling you something which will fundamentally remove something, a part of you that is valuable. And I was thinking about, who do I take advice for, pretty much, because if you just listen to everyone's opinions, right, everyone has opinions. So you don't just want to listen to everyone and take it all on, because you'll lose your sense of self or whatever. So I was thinking about, who do I always take advice from? Well, I always take advice from, for example, Charlie at Exposure Ninja. Now, Charlie's a completely different mindset to me. She's like the work yin to my yang, and she's the organized and process driven, and everything has to be in its place. I'm the like crazy new ideas and want to do loads of stuff, and we don't know what it's going to look like, but bam, let's go. And she kind of understands me really well, and I think actually sometimes she understands me better than I understand myself. I found out recently that she, on one of the projects, one of my Tim's Crazy Outside projects, extracurricular things, I had a project manager from Exposure Ninja working on it with me, and she said to that project manager, don't let Tim get bored of this and leave it to go on to the next thing. And I was like, that's interesting, because guess what? That's exactly what happened. So she knew that was going to happen. So she's aware of these kind of challenges, or, you know, broken bits or whatever in my head. So I'll always take her advice. She helped me kill a bunch of side projects this week, which was really useful. Even though she hasn't built an agency before, as much, you know, neither of us have. We're both on this journey together. So I'll take her advice, whatever happens. And there are other people whose advice I'll always take, and I'll always treat with respect. But I don't know how to get to the, you know, I don't know what the decision criteria are for listening to a therapist. So I would be really interested if you have any suggestions or thoughts. How do you take advice from people when you don't agree with the advice? Like, what are your criteria for deciding whether to listen and act on something, or whether to just completely ignore it if you don't agree with that advice? Obviously, you have to look at the person, you have to decide how qualified they are, but what are your qualification processes? I'm not asking this to get more comments, I'm just literally asking this because I don't know, and I'd be really interested to hear some answers. So yeah, that's what I'm currently working on. Crap. We're going to Hamilton's Bakery, which is just around the corner. Apparently, it's one of the UK's best bakeries. A claim that I would not deny them based on just one product. This product, it may surprise you to learn, is the humble tea cake. Hamilton's tea cakes are ridiculous. In fact, they're so good that today is the first day I've been to Hamilton's in 8 months. I've been boycotting Hamilton's for 8 months because their tea cakes are so good. Here's why. So I was eating one of their tea cakes and explaining to Katie how unbelievable these things are, how moist they are. You don't even need butter, they just taste insane. And she said, yeah, there's probably lard in them or something. I was like, seriously, do you reckon there's lard in them? So I got out my phone and I did a quick Google search. I couldn't find the recipe for Hamilton's tea cakes. You ate them. But I could find a recipe for old school tea cakes which did include lard. Now I put 1 and 1 together and got 5 and was like, okay, so these Hamilton's tea cakes definitely contain lard. That must be the secret to why they're so unbelievable. And then I was like, what is lard? Lard's just like a type of butter, right? So I looked up what is lard. No, lard is bacon fat. So I'm like, oh crap. Okay, so these Hamilton's tea cakes definitely contain bacon fat. I was like, right, I can't eat them anymore. I don't trust anything that shop sells. They're trying to kill me. This is evil. I'm done. So my boycott lasted 8 months, and then last weekend I was in a shop that sells Hamilton's tea cakes. I And I asked the guy, I was like, dude, why are they so good? They contain lard, right? He was like, no, I don't think they contain lard. He's German, that's my German accent. No, I don't think they contain lard. I think it's just their spice mix. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? So I've missed out of 8 months worth of tea cakes because I thought they had lard in, when they don't, it's just the spice mix. So I'm gonna go and smash some celebratory tea cakes and make sure I never judge a company's products based on rumours that I've started in my own head. Again, say bye bye. Bye bye. He's seen a bus. He loves buses. What's that, Luca? Is that a bus? Is it a bus? Oh, it's a big green one, isn't it? That's your favourite. Should we watch it go? There we go. We have the tea cake. That place always sells out of their stock at about 12 p.m. and then they stay open till 5 with basically nothing for sale. I never understand it. So there it is, the beast. The glaze, I wish you could smell it. I wish they sold them online so you could buy them and I could get an affiliate commission. They're so good. They're really, really good. Could it just be loads of butter? If you know, please let me know in the comments. I'm a little bit scared. I figure that if we start teaching him to use a printer now, by the time he's 18, he might be able to actually make it connect to a wireless network. What are you doing?